Hey there, how are you, everybody? Oh, it's so good you got here before me. That's fantastic. I love it. I am Dr. Deb, and it is Thursday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and that's why I'm talking to you. You guys, I say this every week, but some of you may have not joined me before. Please comment, interrupt me, argue with me. I was going through my posts on my website. It's the same as the posts I put in the Facebook group, the same as everything I do here. And somebody made a comment about this is a bunch of junk and it doesn't make sense. And I was all excited. I like it. I mean, good. Tell me more. Why? Why is it a bunch of junk? Tell me. I need to know. And they didn't. So I have no idea why they said that. I don't think it's a bunch of junk. But if you do, that's fine. Just tell me. I want to know what you don't like about it, what doesn't make sense. Sometimes people are so upset for their own reasons that they don't even read what you wrote or listen to what you say, and they hear something entirely different than what you were saying. If you've had that experience, let me know in the chat. I popped out the chat so that I could see it and see what you say, because I don't want to miss anything. So please say something. Get in the chat. Oh my gosh, somebody left. Okay, why did they leave? Okay, I hope everything is good with the reception and the connection. We're going to talk today about you're not sick. You're not crazy. Now, did you ever get a diagnosis? Did the person you love get a diagnosis? How many people know someone close to them or yourself who had borderline, bipolar, narcissist, any of these lovely terms? Just let me know in the chat. Yes, the chat is public, although the entire thing is not yet public, but it will be. So if you don't want to put your name in there, I totally get it. But I guess you can raise your hand. There might be a hand thing. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's like Zoom. There probably are emojis. You could raise your hand. But then again, maybe your name appears. I just want to know who you are and why you're there and what you think. Okay, don't do it. Anyway, let me get into it. Who does labeling benefit? When you get a label, who benefits? Okay, let's say my arm hurts. I say my arm feels terrible. I'm crying. I'm in such pain. I can't stand it. What do they do at the ER? They give you an x-ray. I'm answering because no one's chatting in. You're all there and no one's chatting. All right, shy people. They give you an x-ray. That's what they do. Why do they give you an x-ray? Depressed, anorexic. Yeah, it's terrible. But what happens from the x-ray? The doctor knows, now that you got it, whether it's broken or not. We know what to do. Or you have symptoms of a cold and they stick something down your throat or something back your nose, and they take a sample and they send the sample to the lab. Why? Well, then they know if it's a virus or if it's a bacterial disease. If it's a bacteria, they can put you on antibiotics. And if it's a virus, they can't, because antibiotics don't work for a virus. A diagnosis is supposed to tell you what to do. I'll repeat that. A diagnosis is supposed to tell you what to do. 3 words. You can write them down. It's pretty straightforward. If the diagnosis doesn't tell you what to do, it's worthless. Now, you get a diagnosis of bipolar. Well, the doctor knows what to do. He whips out that prescription pad and he furiously writes you a pill that literally poisons your brain. Now, diagnosis of, let's say it's bipolar, means there are times when you're insanely happy and there are times when you're terribly depressed. Let me ask you a question. Why would a person be flipping from happy to depressed to such a degree? That's what the diagnosis says is happening. But why? See, a pill doesn't take care of grief, heartache, and trauma. It doesn't. All it does is poison your brain. What's broken? Ha ha. Give you a pill. Exactly. That's the problem. Ha ha. A diagnosis of borderline does not make up for the fact that when you were a child, you were mistreated by your own parents or people who you were left in the care of. Those diagnoses don't do anything for you. Why are the doctors giving those diagnoses, please? Why? Well, it makes them feel better. Yeah, it makes them feel better. Research has shown that medications, number one, don't do anything, and number two, poison the brain. And sometimes, number three, stand in the way of true recovery. Now, I'm not 100% against medications when you're getting the right kind of therapy and you need a small amount to tide you over until the therapy can help you take control of yourself, which I'll get to in a little bit as we talk. But the point being that generally speaking, in 99 out of 100 cases, the medicines are not helpful and not worth it. And if the only reason why you're getting a diagnosis is to have medication, it makes the doctor feel better, like they did something. And boy, oh boy, does it make the people in big pharma feel better. They can get their fancy cars, you know? They can get their fancy estates in the Hamptons or whatever state has fancy estates besides New York. Yeah, it makes them feel good. What does it do for you? Somebody was arguing this point with me not long ago and said, well, at least you know what you're dealing with. Oh, really? If the diagnosis does not get to the cause of the symptoms, there are symptoms and there's a cause. For example, the symptom was my arm hurts. The cause, there's a broken bone. The symptom was I have a cough. The cause is I have a cold. I need antibiotics. You understand? There's a germ that's causing the symptom of the cold. If the diagnosis does not actually get to the cause, it is worthless. So what's the cause? There is a whole field now, thank God, in medicine called trauma-informed therapy. Trauma-informed therapy means, or trauma-informed treatment, if you go to the hospital, means that the doctor or the therapist has in mind there was some trauma going on behind the symptoms of this person acting that way. The symptoms tell you the person has suffered. And if the person has suffered, they need what? Same as setting my arm in a cast, they need healing. For what exactly happened? Let me just read this note. Medication numbs the pain and enables people in pain to function. Yes, that's what I'm saying, that if a person really needs it while they're doing therapy, I'm okay with it. If we have a team of like-minded professionals on board to help this person. But if it's just medication alone and they walk out, what does function mean? If you were mistreated as a child, you were beaten, or you were told you were stupid, or you were told you were worthless, or you were told, why couldn't you do better? Which is what I got told. Why couldn't you do better? If you were told all those things, it is painful. Isn't it better to get at the root of the problem, which is these messages that got translated in your mind into truth? That's where the problem comes from. You believe them. That's the problem. That's where the pain is coming from. Until your truth changes, you could use medication on a very temporary basis to numb the pain a little, but it's not going to work. Listen, when I go to the dentist, I don't want to be numb. I don't like it. I want to be living my life every moment alive, for real, in reality, experiencing it, everything. I don't take that numbing Novocaine stuff. Go ahead, Doc Drill. And the dentist looks at me like I'm nuts, but you know what? He does it. Because back in the day when I was a child, they didn't have Novocaine. I'm a couple of years old, and they didn't have Novocaine back then. So you got used to the feeling. And I tell myself, that's a feeling of drilling. It's not any kind of a problem. Yes, it's uncomfortable. It's like when you rip a Band-Aid off your skin, you know it's going to feel something. You don't take medicine for the pain. You deal with it, you know? Okay, so this is the first thing. So now you're going to say to me, okay, smarty pants, how do you heal these things if you don't take medicine? We do. There has been a ton of research in the area of trauma. Something you may or may not have heard of is EMDR. There's Dr. Basil van der Kolk. I'm looking for the book here on my shelf. I show it every time. The Body Keeps the Score. Who recommends EMDR? He recommends what I do, which is IFS. I learned EMDR. I love it. I like IFS even more. It is more flexible. It has more possibilities for it. And what do? First of all, we learn where the triggers come from. You get mad. What percent of that getting mad at a current situation is currently coming from what's happening, and what percent is the past rearing its ugly head? Most of the time, it's coming from the past. It's coming from a deep pain inside that comes because of some things that happened in the past, and the pain doesn't go away. Now, you can numb the pain or you can heal the pain. Who prefers healing? We use our imagination to heal the pain, and it works. We can take a trip back in time to heal the pain. How is that possible? Let me give you a bunch of examples that you're already familiar with. One thing is called the placebo effect. The placebo effect is when you're taking something that you're told is a medication that's going to help you, and it helps you when it isn't really a medication. It's just a sugar pill or a plain nothing pill, and you think it's going to help you. It helps you. The power of the brain is amazing. The power of hope that your brain has is phenomenal. So if you haven't heard of the placebo effect, you should look into it. because this is exactly what's the cause of people getting better without actually taking something when they're told it is something. The second, in folk medicine, which is very still used today all over the world in indigenous cultures, folk medicine also comes from the power of belief. And of course, they can give herbs and so on, but often what they do is they simply have a certain authority, the medicine person, and you believe in them. So when they tell you this is going to heal or that's going to heal, you believe it, or they give a curse and you believe that too. The power of the brain is phenomenal. Now, here's more. They have found that when a person immerses themselves very deeply in a thought in which they're picturing something happening, where they're feeling the feelings and smelling the smells, and they're experiencing the sounds, even the tastes of whatever's going on, they feel it through their body. They really like almost reliving something. They can actually affect the wiring of the brain because the brain doesn't know the difference between a memory and reality. That's why when you're asleep and you have a dream, it feels real. It's only afterwards when you wake up, you realize you were sleeping. But through the dream, it feels real. And your brain registers it as if it was real. This is where hypnosis came from, because hypnosis capitalized on the brain's skill to be able to go with an imaginary thing as if it was real and change. This is why, for example, if a person, let's say, cannot take anesthesia, they're allergic to it, they'll die from it or whatever, they can have surgery with just hypnosis. And it will numb them. It will work. So the way we work, we literally help you, whoever the person is with this diagnosis, go back in time in your imagination and heal and change the pain. Now, would you rather have that happen, or would you rather take a medication to simply numb it when it's still there? See, the idea is for you personally to be in charge of your reactions, whether it's pain from the past or something you're afraid of or anxious about or angry about, whatever it is. Isn't it better for you yourself to be in charge of your reactions? And the way we work is we can help you separate. In fact, the last YouTube, if you go back to whatever you got the notice, whether it was on your email or on your Facebook, or you saw it in Google, wherever you got the notice that there was going to be a video here last week, I did an actual exercise with everyone. So go back to that same link and you'll see how I do it. But you can separate out the painful experience from yourself, and yourself can calm and heal the part of you that was in pain simply through your imagination. I want to ask everyone listening, does this make sense, or do I sound like I'm coming from Mars? You can write Mars, but then explain what it is that is not making sense. Because we've been told the wrong thing again and again and again. We have been told, for example, that if you have a personality disorder, and I still hear people say this, it can't be helped, it can't be healed. That's not true. Of course it can be healed. The brain is very flexible. Of course it can be healed. In fact, There's a word for that. It's called neuroplasticity. We have been told that if a person uses willpower, that's when they can heal. No, willpower cannot numb pain. In fact, if you were 6 years old and you went through terrible torture emotionally, possibly physically, at the hands of your parents, willpower will not make that experience go away. And get this, neither will medication. Medication may help you forget temporarily, but guess what? The problem will come back in disguised forms. How many people here, and no one did comment if this is or isn't making sense, I would love to know. How many people here will cry at a TV commercial or a movie? They can't cry at their parents' funeral, but they will cry that way. Why is that? It's because the pain has a way of making itself known. And that is the reason why people can take lots of medication and up their dose, up their dose, up their dose, add a new medication, another new medication, and it doesn't work. Because the hurt part of yourself is still inside, and it still wants to heal. We all were built with a desire to heal, with a desire to be whole. And when there's a part of us that's in trouble, we'll feel pain so that we can go in and fix it, not so that we can shut it up. If the medication works, all it's doing to work is shutting it up. To the person who wrote, "It helps people to function," does that make sense? I really want to hear from you. Does that make sense? The pain, thank you. The pain is a means of letting us know that healing is necessary. And if we don't heal it, if all we do is numb it, it won't work. It will not stay numb, and it will come out again and again and again. I'll tell you a good one. I have 4 children, and when one of them was a kid, a little kid, he was called, he had a label, ADHD. And you could tell when he didn't take his medicine. And by the way, I was against the medicine, but the school convinced me he needed it because the teacher in 2nd grade told me, I'll ask the class a question and I'll get an answer from one person, your son, from hiding under the desk. I'm like, oh no. All right. So I could tell when he was not on his Ritalin because he would bounce into the car when I picked him up, throw his books through the window, not bother opening the door, and then jump through the window into the car. So I knew he had ADD for sure and had not taken the medicine. So one day, there was a Sunday afternoon that he was going to go to a friend. My son had and still has 1,000 friends. Everywhere he goes, everyone loves him. Very friendly guy. So I said, hey, you're going to drive your friend's mother crazy. You better take your Ritalin. He said, nah, I don't feel like it. I said, but you're going to drive your friend's mother crazy. And he said, listen, Mom, if I want to, after I take it, I can override it. I'm like, what? Excuse me? What? Override it? What does that mean? Well, you know what that word means. We have that much power. So think about it. A person's depressed for a reason. What's the reason? I'll make up the reason. They don't love themselves. That's a big reason, right? And it's happened forever, 20, 30 years of not loving themselves. So they're depressed. Of course they're depressed. What else? I would be depressed, wouldn't you? Okay. You take a medicine to bring up whatever your things in your hormones in your body to level them off. I'm not going to get more into serotonin and all the how that works today. But you stay depressed. Why? Because you still don't love yourself. That's why. Even with numbing the pain, you still don't love yourself. You've got to get to the root of the problem. The labels are stupid. They're meaningless. They're worthless. They don't give any guidelines for treatment. And they're so humiliating. Why should anybody think there's something wrong with them when there isn't? What's wrong is what happened to them. If you suddenly saw me, you walked into my house, why the door was open, I don't know, I'm making this up, and you walked in and I'm screaming, would you think I was crazy? Well, then you see that the hammer just fell and it was really heavy, smashed my foot. Ah, that's why she's screaming. She's not crazy. See? The reactions are coming from the past. They're a sign of pain. The pain needs healing. There's nothing sick or crazy about anybody who's reacting that way. Even if the reactions they have are driving you crazy because it's so unfair to you. You've been yelled at. You've been misinterpreted. I get it. Of course it's driving you crazy. That's why they need healing and you need healing from their behavior. But you're not crazy and they're not crazy. You know what I also did for you guys today? I wrote up, and I've never done this before, but I found an old live that I did a couple of years ago, and I really, really liked it. And what I did is I wrote up a few of my own successes with clients so that you could see how this works. I had one couple that was married for 18 years. Is married for 18 years. I worked with them 16 years ago. I did not use IFS, but we still did healing because they were going to split up. They were in a second marriage and they didn't split up, and they're very happy for the last 16 years. I worked with a couple that had 5 children that did not want to split up, but the wife could not deal with her husband's anger and outbursts and what she called narcissism. She wouldn't work with me, but I worked directly only with the husband, and they became a happy, satisfied couple. I worked with a couple with highly abusive childhoods. And then working with me, the husband started to become aware of his feelings. By the way, one of the things that our brains do, which is supposed to make us feel better and doesn't really work, is it disconnects or dissociates all these bad memories, just like medication. So you don't remember and you're not in pain. Very nice, except it doesn't work to stop the resulting bad behavior anyway. You don't remember why, but for some reason you explode. But we got to the feelings, and it wasn't comfortable to get to the feelings, but it wasn't so bad either. We don't re-traumatize people. We don't have people re-experience everything. There's a little sense of distance when we go back in time to the past because yourself is interacting with your inner child. Yourself is the grown-up you are now. So there's that distance that just takes off the edge so that when you do the healing, it's not overwhelming. Anyway, this guy got into his feelings And instead of stomping out and slamming doors, he and his wife talk about their differences. And finally, I have a couple where the wife realized that she had never asked for what she wanted. She expected her husband to read her mind, which he didn't do because he doesn't know how. And they're doing better. She came in to work on herself alone. Now, I am not trying to advertise for clients because I live in New York and you have to be living in New York in order to become my client. But I do have, as most of you know, and you can check on my website, a coaching course which is able to go all over the country. The coaching course is not a substitute for deep therapy, but for many people, it's a great start. So I'm not going to say more about it now because that's not my objective. But I do want you to know you're not crazy. You're not sick, and neither is the person who makes you feel like you're being driven crazy. They just need help. They need the right kind of help. It's called trauma-informed therapy. As a general overview of all the different types of therapy, the one I practice is internal family systems. Go for it. If there's any questions, let me know. If all of those of you, there's a large group on here, if you guys have anything to say you got out of this, I would love to hear it. I would love to see your comments. Or you could write me, Dr. Deb at drdeb.com. No dots in the doctor, just DR. I'm going to wait 2 seconds for someone to type if you got something out of this. Okay. Have a wonderful day, folks, and I will see you next Thursday. Thank you. All right.